We have a few people that haven't signed in yet, so we might have a few stragglers, but we'll go ahead and get started. This is Jamie Delafield. She is from the OSU Extension office in Hardin County, and she's going to share some good information with us about positive mental health and taking care of our mental health and the importance of that. So I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thanks. All right, well, let me start by saying welcome to all of you, and thanks for being here and sharing your lunch. I know that this may not be the setup that you're used to for these sorts of trainings, but we're just going to have a conversation today. So even when your mouth is full, obviously, I apologize. But we're just going to have a conversation about what you're struggling with and what life is like and some things that we can do to make things a little bit better. My background, before starting with OSU Extension in 2015, I was a youth and children's pastor for 20 years, and I own a preschool in Ada. So I get teaching, I get education. My heart is definitely where you all are at. Here in Allen County, I know you do not have a family and consumer sciences educator in your extension office, but what I do now is I get to teach people about how to be healthier in their relationships, as individuals, so eating healthier, and then in finances. So I get a lot of the court-mandated classes. I get a lot of people get to come to me because they need ServSafe for their restaurant, or people, like yesterday I taught a successful co-parenting class for people going through a divorce. I do a lot of parenting classes for individuals who have lost their children in the system, work with our recovery courts. But my heart, my undergraduate degree is in psychology. My heart is mental health, and I am a nationally known, actually it's kind of fun, nationally known person, and I travel all over the country talking with people about how to be stronger. My colleague, our 4-H educator in Hardin County, Amanda Rains, and I wrote a 4-H project book. So if you have kids in 4-H, we wrote a 4-H project book for 7th through 12th graders called Your Thoughts Matter, Navigating Mental Health. It's been nationally awarded, multiple national awards for that. It's the first 4-H book in the country on mental health, and it came from little old Ada, Ohio. So we're really proud of ourselves and do a little hand patting on our back. But what I want you to know when I say that is not about my accolades, but I want you to know that this is what I do all the time. I am always talking with people right now with our farmers and the things that are happening, not only here in Ohio, but I'm sure you saw on the news the citrus problem in Florida, right? Our farmers are in major stress as well. So some of the resources that I have listed at the back, if you're an agriculture person or you have family that farm, I've listed a couple of those for you, mainly because we're in an agricultural community. And we know that life is difficult and farming is one of your side professions and those sorts of things. But I do a lot of work with mental health and farm stress, and recently was able to work with a team of people from all over in cooperative extension with the Farm Service Agency, where we train Farm Service Agency loan officers about how to manage and help farmers who were coming into their offices who were stressed. So one of the things that I found is that when we talk about stress, it's really important for us to think about being mindful. And when I talk about being mindful, this is a really interesting concept, and mainly because we don't always, especially in education and especially working one-on-one with people, we don't always take the time to be mindful. And this isn't about just coloring or doing yoga, which I could do some yoga poses with you later if you would like, right? We can do some stretches out and let some stress go. We can do that at the end if you guys are up for it. What being mindful means is it's about putting everything else aside and being present right in the moment that you're in. So I want you to just take a minute and think about your day today, from the time that you woke up and until now. What's it been like? And if you're willing to share that, feel free. Y'all know each other, by the way? No. Okay, well then let's back up. Let's start by then introducing one another. I made a terrible assumption that you all know each other and what positions you are. So let's share that. We'll start this way and go around. Tell us who you are and what brought you here.
Okay, I'm Vicki Knapp. I work at Memoir Industries, and I'm also an independent provider.
Okay.
And I just like to come to these classes.
Great.
I'm Linda Mosler, and I am a DSP through Miramore.
I'm Jessica Miller. I'm also a DSP through Miramore.
I'm Rashana Perry, and I work with these ladies at Miramore.
I'm Vicki Gowan, and I'm a parent and I'm a provider.
I'm Trista Johnson. I'm an SSA at Allen County.
I'm Molly Hirsch. I'm also an SSA here at the board.
Jean Rapp with Benchmark.
Gabby Pauline, and I'm a DSP through Benchmark.
Lisa Alexander, and I'm a DSP for MPA.
Abigail McCormick. I am a QIDP for Champaign Residential Services.
Hi, I'm Sue Weiss. I'm a DSP with two companies, Benchmark and MPA. Do you know what a DSP is?
I'm guessing direct service provider.
I'm Nancy Hartman, DSP for MPA Services.
Mary Akins from IHS Services, and I'm an administrative assistant.
I'm Tony Conaway from IHS Services.
Wonderful. All right, so now you kind of know each other a little bit, right? We have some shared backgrounds in the room, which is great. Probably very similar hearts. But what's your day been like so far?
I have yet to go to sleep.
Oh.
I am a QIDP, like I said, but I also am in a master's program. So full-time job, full-time school, and exams coming up. I have an exam tonight, and I had a term paper due last night, and then I got a phone call saying that staff decided not to show up. So called around for a couple hours, couldn't find anybody to come in. So there I went. I've been up since 5 a.m. yesterday.
Just lay your head down.
And it's going.
It'll be okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of just been a long day so far.
Yeah. Yeah, so you've not stopped.
Yes.
My issues are nothing next to hers.
Your issues are nothing, right? Well, and that happens sometimes. That's a really good point. Let's come back to that. But thank you for sharing that. Because really, in reality, none of us have stopped. The minute we woke up, we were already thinking about what we had to do at 8 o'clock tonight. We already were way beyond the moment of just brushing our teeth, of just showering and washing our hair, or not washing our hair because we're too tired, and thank God we can put it up in a hat or a ponytail, right? And it's winter and today was cold, and you all might have had car trouble. One of our cars didn't start this morning as everybody was leaving for work, so then we have to jump it, right? And we just go, and we go, and we go, and we go, and we go. And then we hear someone else's story, and we think, well, I'm not going to talk to you about my story, and I'm not going to be where I need to be. So I want you guys to just take a few minutes and think about what it would really mean for you if you were actually able to slow down and be present in every second of what you're doing. It seems impossible a little bit, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, because for whatever reason, as Americans, we wear busyness like a badge. And what that does is that causes that stress that we feel to just keep increasing and increasing and increasing. The other thing, and I'm really proud of all of you, I don't see really many cell phones out. I work for Ohio State. It doesn't matter what meeting we are in. Somebody's got their laptop open. We're all on our phones. We're all checking email. We're all doing all a zillion other things because we're so important that we don't even know how to sit with the people that we're with. And that's really funny, and I laugh about that a lot. I'm always like, none of us are not important. Put your phone away, right? Be with the people that you're with. But we don't do that. And I found myself, I have two kids. My daughter is a senior this year at Ada. My son is a junior. So I've had, babies back to back. And let's start with right as women, right? What that does to us. So, let's think back to 19 years ago, I had a miscarriage. Then I had a baby. Then I had another baby. And poof, right? My body hasn't been my own, and my life hasn't been my own since. So let's not even talk about work stuff. We talk our personal stuff. And then we talk relationship stuff, right? We can just keep going around and around and around, and it's all just so as my kids are doing what my kids do, and I'm sitting at the 100th basketball game in my life, watching my daughter say the same cheer over and over and over again. And I love cheerleading. I'm a cheerleading coach. I coached at Northern. I coached at Findlay. I was a competitive coach. Love it. But I'm I cannot take it one more time. I'm just going to play solitaire on my phone. And I realized when I was teaching one of these classes one day that, you know what? I'm telling everybody to be mindful and be in their moment, and I am everybody get away from me as I'm sitting there on my phone. So technology adds to our stress because we never get to turn it off. So I want you guys to think a minute. We're all different ages in this room. So I'm 47. So I graduated from high school in 1990, and I think back to what we used to do for fun, right? So when I went to Riverdale High School, I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, it's a little school in Hancock County. I grew up outside of Kenton. We used to cruise the square. We used to cruise around, and you'd go, I don't know if you've ever driven through Kenton, but there's this big courthouse. You'd drive this way, see everybody, yell out the window, talk to them. Then you'd go down to Wendy's, you'd have conversation in the parking lot, get a Frosty, and then you'd turn around and go the other way to see if you couldn't see anybody. Okay? It's not safe for our kids to do those kind of things anymore. And our kids don't need to do that to go see people because all they have to do is hit a button and their person is right in front of them. So one of the things that happens when we're talking about mindfulness and we're talking about stress is figuring out how to shut people off. And being okay to say, this is my boundary, and my boundary is right now, I'm not home. And turn that thing off. And to teach your kids to say,
The Bluffton bus is out front for unloading.
see, always something going on. And to say, you know what, I want to be intentional and I want to be in the moment with you. And you're more important to me right now than solitaire or the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which thank God that season has started again. And I might be binge watching a little too much. And all of those other things, right, that come in. And so my question to you and why I ask you about what you did in high school, those times, like as we get older, seem very free. And your heart gets a little bit light. So my question to you is what have you done recently that's made your heart feel like that? And it sounds like for you, there's not a lot of time
Oh, no.
for that. Yeah.
Not very much.
Yeah. But one of the things that we know is that when we let our heart sing, those endorphins and the dopamine levels go up, and then your body can slowly start to breathe again. What makes your heart sing? Anybody want to share?
What?
Your heart sing. Like what brings you that unbridled, like, ooh, relaxation, I'm in my moment, I'm in my element.
Seeing my granddaughter,
There you go. Do you get to do it often?
not very often, but I get to watch her, just pictures
Okay.
and video.
Awesome.
So when I feel upset, that's when I do it.
Good job. Awesome. Good. Yeah. So sometimes with our family.
Cup of tea and my Bible always help.
Awesome. Yep. So carving out that time, right, to just be intentional and be present.
And listening to music.
Mm-hmm. Music can be an ultimate one.
It's to be alone. You know, just so all the world is not there
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and shut it off.
Yeah. Take time to recharge. Yeah. So yeah, so I've recently reclaimed that we've gone through some really interesting things in our family over the last 4.5 years, actually since 2011. So actually that's 8 years. Oh, good golly, no wonder I'm a mess. And so that's a long time to be in suspension. And recently I realized, right, that if I'm going to talk about this and I'm going to be intentional, and I have been working out every single day for the last month, and I have made that a priority. And I've been trying weird things. Like we just tried an aerial fitness class last night. They put bungee cords on you. It was so much fun. Everyone go do it.
I see that. I drive by it and I'm thinking,
It was really fun. But I'm a little bit of a daredevil, and I like, the flying squirrel, and I like the high ropes courses at camp, and I like all of that stuff. But it was really good, and you're grounded, but it was really fun. And so trying new things and giving myself permission, and that's the key. I realized as I've worked through this and talking with people, as women, we don't give ourselves permission to take care of us. And what that does then is that depletes us every single other place that we are. But we need, and I am like realizing and recognizing, right, that we need to find out what we can do to put belly laughs back in our life. We need to find out what we can do to cry without shame. We need to put it back in our life to figure out to say, you know what, I'm really, really angry right now. Because what we do is we just put it aside and then we put it aside, and then we put it aside. And the more that we put it aside, then we're where we're at here with stress. And you've got the definition in front of you. Stress is just a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or demanding situations and circumstances. Stress is always something from the outside that's coming in at us. So for farmers, it's weather, it's bugs. For moms, it's our family, it's holding things together. As women, it's knowing that it doesn't matter if we're the airbrushed, get me started on like what we believe that we should be like, right? All of us, it does not matter our age, there's still always that little I'm not enough in the back of our head. And I don't know where that comes from, and I don't know why we are made that way, but I have never talked to a woman who doesn't say, sometimes I just feel like I'm not enough. That isn't coming from inside of us, that is the world coming at us. And that causes stress. So I encourage you to think about ways that you can be more mindful from the minute that you wake up until the minute that you go to sleep. So when you start to feel yourself being pulled 1,000 different directions, it's okay to say, you know what, let's take a step back. And when you're working with your clients and you're working with their families, it's okay to put that in the moment. It's okay to say, you know what, let's start our meeting by just taking a few seconds to regroup and put everything else to the side. Because we're all coming at it 1,000 different directions. And I'm sure your life is like mine. I was telling Karen that I don't know some days, like if it's not right in front of me, it's not getting done. My calendar, we can jump, and you guys do this too, right? I'm going to jump from teaching a nutrition class to crying with people that are getting a divorce to talking with somebody who has lost their children and telling me they're the best parent ever, and I just fall off my chair laughing because I'm like, I know I'm not the best parent ever, and I have my children in my house, right? Like we've got to admit that we are all needing to grow, and so to flip your mind, and then you deal with your own stress of your coworkers and your family, and you've got text messages coming at you, and there's always something. Woo! It's okay to say, you know what? Let's stop and refocus. Let's just take a breath, and if it's something that you need to do, like carry pipe cleaners with you, carry blocks with you, carry things with you that you can do it. You can just build a Jenga tower and talk while you're doing those little things, or letting people manipulate stuff while you're talking. That gives you those little tiny things give you a moment to reset. And okay, we're all just going to be here right now, and we're going to talk about what we need to talk about. Sometimes you're talking about hard things. And sometimes you get 5 minutes, because we only get about really 5 minutes of people's attention. That's about what we listen, and that's about what we hear. So when we think about that, and we think about what stress looks like, what are some of those things in your life that are causing you stress? Right now with the holidays, right? Everybody say it, I do not want to go to that family gathering, and I do not want to sit by that person. That alone, planning when your family is going to get together and when schedules are going to line up, is exhausting. And if I hear one more of my sister-in-law say, I will not meet on this day, I'm going to pop them in the notes. Right? Because I am like, it is not all about you. It is about us getting our kids together. And just because you don't feel like it isn't a good reason for it not to happen on that day. If that's the day that everybody can get together. Or, don't bring the deviled eggs because I don't like your deviled eggs. Whatever it is that your family has. You guys, every family has it. So that you're like, oh, do we even want to go? I said to my kids, do we even really want to go? And they're like, yeah, we want to see our cousins. I'm like, great. Yeah. And you want that, but it's hard. And then we think about finances, and nothing is cheap. And our kids don't need anything, and our families don't need anything, but we feel like we have to. And I'm not really sure why. Right?
It's become too commercial. We've gotten away from the real meaning of Christmas.
Yeah.
And you know what? Most of us don't need anything, but yet because it's Christmas and you go out and you have to buy gifts.
Right.
So it's stressful.
It is very stressful. So yeah, we've got that coming at us, and maybe you didn't budget for that. But yet we're finding, right, that we're putting ourselves into debt so that we can have whatever we have. So that's stressful. And then what if somebody's sick right now? Or what if your heart, you guys have big hearts, you work with your jobs, right? You're thinking about your clients, and you're thinking about their families, and you're thinking about who has what, and who needs what, and who has what. You never get it. I work 24/7. I can set my boundary and I can say that I'm off, but I'm always thinking about someone. And my heart is always wondering, what do I do next and how do I help without being intrusive? And I'm sure that you're there too. So when we think about those things, what happens is then our mental health starts to get affected. And our mental health is that emotional and physiological and psychological state of, right, not being able to turn our brains off. And what happens is that when we can't turn our brains off, guess what? Everything else gets affected. The way we eat, the way we carve out time for ourselves, the way that we handle anything that comes at us, the way that we acknowledge other people. Think about it. Anybody been to the mall or Walmart lately? People are miserable. And I don't know about you, but I'm like kind of an empathetic person, even though I'm really bold and blunt. I just look around and I just want to hug everyone. I know that we're not allowed to do that anymore, but I just want to be like, it's going to be okay. But it's not. For some people, it's not going to be okay. And I can't fix the world and I can't change that. So I start to realize, right, then your eyes get opened up and you go, oh no. Now what? So then, I live with anxiety. I was diagnosed when I was 32, but I should have been diagnosed at like 3 or 4. I mean, I definitely have always not been able to shut my brain off. But what happens is with my anxiety, is then I start to notice that when my brain won't shut off, then I can't get out of bed, and I don't want to be around people, and I don't want to pay bills, and I don't want to return people's phone calls, and I start believing that you're going to be better off if I'm not there, so I'm not going to show up. And then people are like, well, you're depressed. I'm like, I'm not depressed. I'm not sad. I'm not those kinds of things, but my muscles really hurt and my stomach really hurts and I feel like I'm going to puke, right? So then we start recognizing that all of this outside stuff starts to affect us in our mental health. So for you all, I want you to think about, if you've experienced some symptoms for like 3 weeks, and we kind of do it like with a calendar. So I say 3 weeks, some people will say 2. But like I do my calendar Sunday to Saturday, right? So we know that as women, especially some of you that are still experiencing all of your hormones and, periods and those sorts of things, right? But even those of us that aren't, we still have hormonal swings and nothing ever gets managed right? Explain that to men, they don't get it. Sunday to Saturday, Sunday to Saturday. At the beginning of that next week, that's your 3rd week. If you're still feeling like life's a little rough, go talk to a doctor. See your family practitioner and say, you know what, I'm feeling a little off. I'm sure you guys have benefits that have an EAP, where you can call a number and they can help you find somebody who's in your insurance plan that you can go speak with. But here's what's happening. Because we are not being mindful in situations, and then we start neglecting how we really feel and putting things in little doors and closing those doors, we forget that it's okay to say, my brain is hurting right now. And because my brain is hurting, all of me is hurting. And I can't do things that I need to.
Okay, now, I have a sister and a son who have anxiety and depression, probably because of the anxiety. But I have no idea how to relate to them because I don't have it.
Right.
And I just read an article that kind of said everything that I thought would help doesn't. And I'm going, okay, now I really don't, you know don't, my son did say one time, the best thing I said to him is, you feel really terrible today, but you're going to feel better again someday. But, the article I read said, it doesn't help for you to say that. And I'm going, well, what do you say? What do you do with somebody that can't turn their mind off? How do people who don't experience it and can't relate, how do we?
Good question. So let's go on in your slides here. I've listed some, I know they're small and I apologize. If you go to page 5, one of the things that we want to make sure that we're doing, and again, I apologize that they're tiny. I can send Karen a PDF of just the slides so that you can have them bigger. if you guys would want to print them off. I'm sure she has all of your emails. But one of the things that we want to make sure that we're doing is that when we search the internet and we are Googling things, that we are putting after our search site, S-I-T-E, then a colon, then .gov. See what comes up? If you don't find something that's helpful on a government website, then you're going to go to .edu because it's going to be research-based from a college or an institution. And then finally, .org. Now, .org is you have to be careful with sometimes because sometimes the .org individuals can basically have an agenda. But what is happening is because anxiety and depression are so individualized for each person, and that's the hard part with mental health. We all could experience, right now this building could catch on fire, and it would affect each of us in a different way. Some of us would experience some traumatic experiences and have a trauma response to that, and some of us would be like, I was in a building, it caught fire, that was crazy. That was unbelievable. And it not faze us at all, right? And so one of the things that happens is when we read some of these articles, it's a blog type of thing where an individual is saying that didn't work for me. What we know works best for somebody who is experiencing a mental illness, whether it is substance misuse, anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, bipolar, and if you take a look on page 2, there's a slide, 1 in 5 American adults are diagnosed every year, but it's showing you prevalence. So anxiety disorder is the most common. And we look at things like schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. Very few people in the population actually have those diagnoses. But those are the things that we hear about the most in the media.
Because I feel like everybody I know is bipolar.
Well, one of the things that happens is that sometimes there's some people diagnose themselves, and sometimes it's a hard thing to get a true diagnosis. And it takes a while for that to happen. So we have found, right, that overall, it's an easy thing for people to say because guess what? If you have that diagnosis and you can find a doctor who's willing to diagnose you with that, you can get a lot more help. You can get a lot more benefits. And so there are sometimes some, unfortunately, right, in every profession, there are people who are willing to make diagnoses that aren't actually correct. And so that is happening. The other part is that if you're working within a population, my guess is that you might be seeing a higher prevalence just because of the population that you might work with. But overall, across the country, it is a really, really low rate. But people do try harder to find doctors. I had an aunt who did not need a bipolar diagnosis, but she kept going to a different doctor until they would give her one because she could get disability if she could get that diagnosis. So we have, so unfortunately, right, just like we have, I mean, people play the system with their mental health, just like they do with other things. What?
My ex is diagnosed bipolar,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, don't tell him that he can get disability for it. He'll never go back to work.
Yeah.
Because he probably doesn't know that.
Yeah.
Or maybe he does, I don't know.
Right. Well, what we try to do, right, too, is we want people to get, it's really hard because it took me 4 different medications in about 12 months to figure out what worked for me and how that all played out. And so it's really, really hard to find somebody, too, that will work with you. And so if you get a diagnosis, bipolar medications are way more intense. And you definitely get a different kind of buzz from those than you're going to get from other things. So if it shuts things down and I don't have to deal with life, right, I'm going to take that. It's why we see a lot of comorbidity with substance misuse disorders and mental illness, because I can medicate. I can just belly up to the bar and it's okay. And so we have a lot, and it's hard because people don't talk about it, which is why we're here. So my anxiety, I have generalized anxiety disorder. I just have a train running around in my head 24/7. It's just, there's nothing that stops it. All of us, though, probably have a little bit of phobia. Who's scared to death of something? If a rodent would come through this right now, I would be on the table squealing like I live in the country. I grew up on a farm. I hate rats. I hate mice. I hate those little creepy crawly things, right? Phobia, like have nightmares about them. We all have things like that are little pieces of mental health problems and mental health disorders. But what we find is, right, is that once I get a diagnosis, sometimes we don't go get a second opinion, like we would if we had a cancer diagnosis, or if I had a respiratory issue. We just accept that that's what it is. And so we don't always, we feel better than we did, so that must be what it is. But long term, if we're not living healthier and we're not living better, that's probably not the best, that's probably not our diagnosis if I'm not willing to do what I need to do. Does that help a little bit? It's just interesting. It really is. And we have seen, I mean, we've seen bipolar disorders, diagnoses as young as 8. Because it's hard to make that diagnosis. But we do definitely see in certain populations and in certain doctors a rise of that diagnosis. So we're going to go back to your question about what can you do. So the number one thing that you can do to help somebody who is struggling is just to say, you know what, I am really worried about you and I've noticed that you're not yourself. The I statements that we can engage with active listening, and you all have had that training, I'm sure, right? But it is really, really hard sometimes when it's a friend or a family member because you're so distraught and you're so worried that we don't always engage that. So again, saying to them, you know what, I'm really worried, I notice you're not yourself, is there anything I can do? Is the best thing that we can do. The other thing is that mental health diagnoses are not casserole diseases. When I was diagnosed, not one person in my family or my in-laws, no one said, tell me about that. What does that mean for you? What does that look like? How can we help? What affects you? And it's really interesting because I would have responses to events and they would say, why are you acting that way? And I would be like, read the textbook. It's right there. Like I am responding, right? And I'm learning, right? I'm, in see a counselor, I'm doing cognitive behavioral therapy, like I'm doing all the stuff that I know that I need to do. But innately, when you say this, I go to here. And so I have to learn and process. We say a lot in my house that just because I feel it doesn't mean it's real. Just because you feel it doesn't mean it's real. And that's really helpful for a lot of people that I've talked with anxiety, is recognizing that my emotion is not reality. And so letting people process that out loud and giving people an opportunity to actually share that they're afraid, to share that they're happy today, to share that they're joyful is really helpful. But when someone has been diagnosed with other illnesses, we do our best to learn how to help them and to ask them. So if someone that you love is in counseling, ask if you can sit in a counseling session with them. Can you take them to their counseling session? When my husband was diagnosed with cancer, our entire town came out and everybody drove him to his appointments. People brought us food. They gave us gas cards. They helped us. I have a great support system of friends. And I have a really good friend who struggles with depression, and she's a picker. So she's always plucking and poking. And so I will notice her doing that, and I will be like, I'm really worried about you. Lay down. Let's do a baby massage. She does not like to be touched, but she loves baby massages. So a baby massage, just so you guys know, is you take somebody with their back, and you just take your fingers and rub very lightly on their back. Like, so we do infant massage and teach parents how to do infant massage, right? But it's very relaxing for adults to have their back rubbed. The other, and she doesn't like hugs, and we know, like we used to need like 8 hugs a day. 10 seconds a piece. We need now like 20 because we don't touch people anymore. And we're not releasing endorphins that reset our brain and help us with mental health. So those are little things that you can do. So I'm like, do you need a baby massage right now? You don't look okay. And she knows that I will shut myself up and I won't go to things. So she'll come pick me up. I'm worried about you. You haven't been to our meeting in a while. You're not coming. You didn't come to work for 2 days. What's going on? I'm like, I can't open my computer. I can't do it. She's like, yes, you can. I'm gonna come get you. I'll take you to work today. I'll sit beside you in your cubby, right? And so being okay to talk about it and ask people how they are is the number one thing that you can do to help somebody. Just acknowledging that they're struggling is number one. So those I statements are really, really important. The other part of it is to just show, get those Bipolar for Dummies books. Read those, Google those websites. Go to a self-help group. NAMI is a fantastic organization. We have some great chapters in the area for individuals who want to support people that are living with mental health issues. It's a grassroots organization started by a mom whose son lived with a mental illness, and they have taken it nationally for just how do you talk and what do you do. The other thing is to be open and honest and say, you know what, it's okay if you need to reset. Have you guys seen Kevin Hines when he's come to the area? So Kevin Hines is an individual who jumped from the Golden Gate Bridge. He had a suicide attempt, and he survived. And we care, people in the Mental Health and Recovery Services Board bring him to our area quite frequently, usually once a year or once every 18 months. And his story is really, really awesome because he regularly now checks himself in to the hospital to reset. And so one of the things that we can do with mental health is that when we see stress and being overwhelmed, it's to say to people, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to go to the hospital. But instead, we don't want to go to that place because it's over there. And we don't visit people who are in, the psych ward. And we don't do that. We just say, oh, they're getting the help they need, I don't need to go. But we need to visit our loved ones. We need to ask them to put us on that list. And we need to show them that we care about them and we get it, that it's really, really hard sometimes. And sometimes you'll just laugh, and sometimes you'll just cry. And sometimes there's not really anything you can do. Because we know that it will pass. I know that it will pass. Because I've been fighting it for a really, really long time.
Yeah, you say your mind never shuts off.
Never shuts off.
So, how do you deal with that? I mean, I know my sister, she says, it just never turns off. I can't sleep at night, I can't, during the day, then I'm, messed up because I'm not getting my sleep, but I can't,
Right. So for me, one of the things, right, is that we know that people can live and live a healthy, happy life with a mental illness. I just learned how to adapt. And I'm very, very open, and I'm an oversharer. And so I'm very, very open about this is what I need. For example, I need for you to not send me a text message that says we need to meet without you telling me why we need to meet. Or we need to talk. You need to say, I would like to talk with you about X, Y, Z. Otherwise, I will sit for hours and wonder what I did, and then I will start crying because I will remember what I did that upset you. My daughter was in a college visit, and she was interviewing, and I literally I had a dream about a high school friend the night before that he wasn't okay. I literally messaged him and went, I'm feeling really, really bad, and you know how I am, but I just need to apologize for anything I did when we were in college that really, really upset you, because I know that I wasn't a good friend, and I'm really sorry. We were 47 years old, and I could not turn off that I hurt him when we were 19. And he messaged me back, and he's like, you're a hoot, and it's fine. We were both young and stupid. I hurt you too. I'm like, yeah, but I don't remember you hurting me. I remember hurting you. And so being able to be vulnerable is really important, and being able to have people not, to show that to me. I've learned coping strategies. And so asking people, well, what do you do to cope? What do you do what do you do to help? I have a list of things that help me. And I know what helps my friends who are struggling. And we all do, but right, when we go back to that being mindful stuff that we talked about at the beginning, and that busyness and that being intentional, sometimes what happens is we think that the answer to how are you feeling is just good. So I also try really hard to model that today's a really good day. My anxiety is not so bad. Yes, my brain is not stopping, and I'm thinking as we're talking of everything that I've got to do later, but I'm managing, and I'm going to be all right. So our goal, right, for people who are struggling with mental illness is to help them to live healthier, to laugh more, and to love as much as they can. And know that it may not look the same. But if I ask each one of you, what affects your ability to live, laugh, and love, it's going to be very, very different. And so just knowing that, right, we all have different limitations and we all have different expectations. But asking that question is good, because right now, right, what can help you is probably somebody making you a meal so you can study and not have to worry about what you're going to eat, right? Yeah. So for each of us at a different season, it's very, very different. What would have helped me when my kids were little, when I was dealing with anxiety with 2 babies in diapers, is very, very different. That's what's going to help me now that they're leaving my nest and I'm going to be stuck with my husband for 20 more years watching Andy Griffith's show on Friday night. Very, very different anxiety and very, very different issues. So we want to take that time, right, to ask that question. What do you need? How can I help you? I love you. We're going to get through this. It's going to be all right. If somebody is depressed, we want to just crawl with them. Let's watch a movie. Let's cry together. I'll tell you the movie that will do it. Watch Coco. by Disney. It'll have you in a fetal position. I cried for 45 minutes at the end of that movie, right? Like, it is a tear jerker. It is unbelievable. The other thing that you guys can do is that we offer, and Mental Health and Recovery Services Boards offer it too. We could schedule for you guys, it's an 8-hour training. We can do it in 6.5. We can buzz through it. It's called Mental Health First Aid. And there are 2 different courses. One is about each individual diagnosis and learning more about signs and symptoms for each individual diagnosis and how you can help somebody. We employ the Algae Method, and I'll give you guys those steps in a minute. And then there's one for, it's called Youth Mental Health First Aid, and it's for adults who work with teens. And it helps you kind of learn developmentally where that line is between typical adolescent development and when they might need an intervention and need somebody to help them and take them to see a counselor. The National Council, those are through the National Council on Behavioral Health. They're also piloting right now with Lady Gaga a teen version that's a peer-to-peer version so that teens can step in and assist one another. So Indian Lake schools have that pilot right now, and we're hoping at Ohio State, we've got that on our list that we're on the waiting list to get trained. So we're hoping within the next year to get trained in that teen pilot so we can bring it to all the local high schools and to our 4-Hers. But one of the things that happens, so the Algae Method, the first thing is that we're going to assess for risk of suicide or harm. So it's ALGEE. We're going to assess for risk of suicide or harm. And the mnemonic is not linear in any way, shape, or form. But we're just going to always be paying attention and to see if somebody's in the process of maybe engaging in self-harm strategies or if they are saying that they're ready for their life to end. The second one is we're going to listen non-judgmentally. This one is really, really difficult, and in the class we practice a lot because what happens is sometimes we think we're not being judgmental, but our face or our body language absolutely shows our judgment. We also know that we listen a lot of times for a response. Anybody? We want to fix it. One of the things when you're talking about somebody with mental health is that you can't fix it. No matter what you say to me, my brain is always going to do that. When I was 4 years old, I would cry all the way home from my grandma's house on Christmas Eve and tell my parents every single thing I had done wrong the entire year. Because I knew Santa Claus knew that I was on the naughty list. 4 years old. The leading cause of death right now in Ohio for 10 to actually 9 to 12-year-olds is suicide. We're not being able to talk and we're not being able to share. So when we're listening, right, people may tell you things that are harmful and hurtful and they may shock you. But we want to listen, not for a response, but just to listen. And so Brene Brown has a really awesome video on empathy on YouTube. I would encourage you guys to take a look at that. It's about a 2-minute watch. And it's just about how to open up your heart and to listen. The next thing is to give reassurance and information. So the number one thing you can remind people is they're not alone. And we have great supports here. You guys living in Allen County have even more supports than we do in Hardin County, right? There are other people that are going through this. You're not the first person to think about dying by suicide. Lots of people think about that, but you don't have to act on it. It's very, very common to think that people would be better off without you, but we're not. We would miss you and we love you. And lots of people deal with anxiety. Lots of people deal with depression, especially this time of year, right? Grief and remembering loved ones that are gone really exacerbates a lot of that kind of stuff. The next one is to encourage professional help. So that would be a doctor, a nurse practitioner, a counselor, somebody who has had classes and has a license of some sort. And then the last one is to encourage self-help strategies and other supports. And that would be clergy, exercise, cognitive therapy, reading, self-help books, hunting, aerial yoga, dancing. I'm a Zumba instructor, being with your friends, belly laughing, those sorts of things.
What was the third one?
Give reassurance and information. I'm getting close to my time. I could talk about this all day long, but you can't tell. Other questions, other thoughts. The biggest things that I want to show you is that in your packet, I did print off for you some stuff for educators from mentalhealth.gov on signs and symptoms to look for. As direct service providers, one of the things that I would encourage you all to do is to familiarize yourself with wecarepeople.org and Coleman and the facilities, and I'm sure you've heard of them, and I'm sure you know what they have available, and you probably work very closely with some of their individuals. But one of the things that you can always do is to leave the numbers for the suicide prevention hotline, for the crisis text line. Make a little flyer that's branded and approved by your organization that's just part of the packet that you give to people. That way, if they are struggling, you have shown them what they need to do. Just like we show people how to eat a My Plate meal, we want to make sure that they have those resources available and they know where to go. And I did give you a few, and again, I'll email you the bigger PowerPoint, but I've given you some of them. But these are things that, you know, what we're looking for in different behavior. These are different ways to talk about it. So this one, the second one, lists out all of the things. One of the things that's hard for all of us in the professions that we are in is that we like to think that we can diagnose, right? That fix it. And so we're going to say, I think you have ADHD, or I think you might be struggling with anxiety. And you're shaking your head that no, you don't do that. But in our heads, we do that, and sometimes it slips out. So we want to make sure that we're not putting what we think is a diagnosis on somebody, because again, we've got to trip over into that 3 weeks of stuff. And for teens, if you're working with younger people, sometimes it's even like 4 to 6 weeks, because their hormones are just wonky wacky, right? And it takes a while with them sometimes to figure it out. The last part is that I know that you guys work with a lot of individuals who probably experienced some sort of trauma. And there are multiple things, and I could come back and we could do trauma-informed response training with you guys if you've not already had that. Because trauma can be historical, it can be, you know, weather-related, it can be, there's so many things. And trauma adds to our stress. So this is just a great resource from SAMHSA about things that you can do to help young people and individuals with trauma who've experienced that, and to help you kind of work through that with them if you need it. So, questions, thoughts, comments?